I don't have a witty opening for this one, guys. I saw a movie. It was pretty cool. I'm going to talk about it.
He'll sing you songs and tell you lies. But all he wants is to taste your eyes.
Child Eater is a film directed by Erlinger Throddsen. It is his directorial debut based on his short film of the same name. It stars Kate Bliss, Colin Critchley, and Jason Martin, and it tells the story of a babysitter who finds out that the local legendary boogeyman is actually living in the child she's watching's closet. He really likes to eat kids' eyes so he doesn't go blind. This is an interesting film because there's a lot to like about it, there's a lot to not like about it. It has some serious problems, but overall I found it rather charming because there's a lot that this movie does right, and there's a lot about this movie that is a sort of breath of fresh air in this modern horror scene. This is a very low budget film, and you can tell it's very independent, and that it was maybe made for a couple $100,000. I don't know, but because of that, it keeps the film feeling very grounded and very homegrown, I think is a good word for it. Nothing about this film feels larger than life or crazy. It feels very basic and straightforward, and I like that. It adds a certain level of charm to the film. Because of that low budget, I mean, there's some major problems, but it also there's a good amount to praise in this film. Child Eater is a film that very much wants to make itself feel like a sort of dark fairy tale, and I think that Throddsen really did a good job at capturing that tone very well, because there's a lot about this that feels very fantasy-like, very dreamy in a weird way, and it almost feels a little like A Nightmare on Elm Street in that sense, in that you have that local boogeyman, and he's trying to kill the kids, and he's a real piece of shit before he was alive, or before he died, and a real piece of shit after he died, but more than that, it captures a certain, feel that a lot of Grimm's fairy tales would have, and I like that. There's a lot of folklore to this movie, and there's a lot of world building while still managing to keep the story very straightforward, and I like that a lot. There's nothing about this film that is larger than life or feels like it required millions of dollars to do. There's nothing about this film that feels like a studio film. It feels very independent, and I like that a lot. I like that at its core, despite being a folktale of sorts, it follows the makeup of a slasher film, and that's why I really think this movie's a breath of fresh air in this modern horror scene, because you don't get a lot of those anymore. This film, despite aside from the fact that it looks like it was shot with modern technology, very much feels like the story that could have been written up in the slasher heyday in the 80s. It really follows that formula in a way that is charming, and I like that. It has a certain level of camp to it. It has a certain level of awareness to it, and I think that's great. I think that we don't get enough of those anymore. We don't get enough films of that anymore, and so when I see a movie like this that embraces that subgenre and really wholly commits to the formula of that subgenre, I think it works really well, and I think that is one of Child Eater's more strong points, is that it really works on several different levels. It works as a folktale, it works as, a slasher film. It has some genuinely creepy moments. It has some really... The backstory that they create is really, really extensive and rich and cool and creepy at times. There's some really dark shit in there. I love that. I love the idea of the killer / boogeyman, Robert Bowery, who is an elderly man suffering from macular degeneration who believed that if he ate the eyes of children, he could regain his sight. And that is so twisted and cool and sick, and I love it. And also, and just his design overall when he's the boogeyman is really, really cool, and I love the dark trench coat, the hulking figure, and the pointy ears and sharp teeth. It just looks very cool. I love the fact that his eyes are hidden behind goggles. It's a very awesome design. It really captures that feel of the 80s slasher villains, who they all had a very distinct design, and it really adds to the menace of the character. And in that way, I think he is kind of like a nice mix of, Freddy Krueger and Michael Myers, and that there's something inherently supernatural about him, but he's still maybe human. It's hard to tell what he is, but the way he's designed and the way he acts and interacts with people is very cool, and he's a very threatening presence throughout the film, and I think that's awesome. Like I said, this movie does have some issues. I mean, mainly in just both the acting department and the effects department. The acting is about what you'd expect from a low budget independent film. I mean, it ranges from decent to not good. Some like I said, some people are much better than others, but overall it's just kind of not great. What really bummed me out more than anything was the effects, mainly with the eye ripping and everything, because for a film that is centered around the eating of eyes, not one of the missing eye prosthetics looked convincing at all. And that really bummed me out, because the rest of the practical effects in this movie were actually pretty good, especially when it came to like the villain. Again, like he looked great. So it bums me out to see that they could not once get the eye, the gouged eye prosthetic done in a way that was convincing. Every time you see somebody like holding an eyeball, it's like 3 times the size that an eyeball should be. It's like a fucking tennis ball in their hand, and it's just, that bummed me out, because I mean, in a movie that was doing a lot right in terms of the genre it was going for, they really fucked up when it came to gore effects, and that really bummed me out, because that probably would have taken this movie up a peg for me if they didn't mess those up so badly. But overall, I mean, like I said, I can't really hate on this movie. I enjoyed it. I really thought it was like decently made and charming and fun, and I think that people who are a fan of a specific genre would really like this. And so that's for that reason I'm going to say that Child Eater is absolutely good for fans of slasher films. I think if you're into that subgenre, if you miss the heyday of the slasher movies in the 80s, I think this is a good one for you. I think you actually might enjoy it, because it's a nice throwback while managing to do something new, managing to update all the technicals, and I think that's really cool. And I don't know, I enjoyed this film a lot. I would definitely recommend it to people, especially, like I said, if you're fans of slasher films. I think you'll really enjoy this. Child Eater's available for both digital and physical purchase on Amazon. If you want to check it out, it's fairly cheap. I bought my copy. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a lot to say, because this is a very straightforward movie, but I mean, I enjoyed it. It has a really strong charm to it, and I think that you guys should check it out, because it's a fun time. I applaud low budget indie filmmaking, and this is a key example of a good one. So I mean, check it out, and comment down below and let me know what you thought of it, and like and comment and subscribe and all that jazz. Thank you so much for watching, guys, as always, and we'll see you soon.
Lucas.